Hey guys, just before the video starts, I want to apologize for the abruptness and the little awkwardness in today's video. I didn't have a script because I was really busy this week, so I wasn't able to type one out. And unfortunately, that caused some random words or some random phrases to be repeated in the video. And I do want to apologize for that. But I was speaking from heart, so the advice you're going to get is still from where it really hits. So I hope you guys enjoy this video and enjoy listening. Pretty sure everyone, no matter how old or young you are, have experienced some sort of parental argument. That is, your parents or someone in your family has argued with another member before. Whether that would be your mom to you, whether that would be your grandfather and grandmother, right? There's a lot of arguments that go within a family. Sometimes your parents argue with you, and it's frustrating, right? Sometimes, your parents argue you about phones, homework chores, or curfews, and what you want to do doesn't align with what they want to do, and so it turns out that it's like both of your parents and you live on a different planet or separate planets, and it sucks. Arguments as a whole, especially when it comes to parents, can be painful because you know these people personally and they still argue even though your mom or dad might seem really close, or your grandfather or grandmother seem really really close, and yet they still argue, and it's really bad. Now the problem is when arguments like these happen, you sort of realize that your family is not the picture perfect esque family that you've always thought. As a kid, I used to always think that my family was, the picturesque, right? It's like the Homer Simpson family where everyone's perfect. But then once you grow up, you kind of realize that, wow, my family does have faults as well, right? And a lot of people start to, or a lot of these parents start to argue with each other due to several disagreements. And the older you get, it almost feels like the more common it is, right? One of the most common triggers I think that many teenage people deal with is the idea of social media and phones and screens, right? Your parents always ask you, why are you on your phone always? Or, why are you scrolling through TikTok or on Instagram? Or why do you keep texting your friends, right? Now, for the people that use phone screens, or for the teenagers and younglings out there, you kind of understand why you use the phone, right? It might be because you're bored, or it might be because you're going through something really hard that your parents don't understand, and so you go to social media or you go to sort of TikTok to relieve that stress, right? But your parents don't know because your parents were born in a different generation than you were. They have different priorities straight, and yes, your parents technically can change. It's really not worth it to put effort to help them change because parents have already experienced most of their life on this planet already, right? And so changing them, although how willpowered you are, you could change your parents, but it's not worth it to change them because you know that their ways will never fit your society, and that's why arguments grew up in the first place. I've seen multiple times with my grandfather and grandmother always argue because of some really small thing, right? Maybe, cutting the grass incorrectly or spilling a cup of water, right? It gets very frustrating to hear them always, chant and always shout at each other. And thankfully, I know that I'm not alone. A lot of people have dealt with this sort of problem where their parents don't really care and their parents just sort of yell at them because they think that they have the authority, and it's not really true. Now, this video isn't going to be just me ranting about why arguments are bad for you and parents, but for some research that we have, I think it's kind of important to know why parents argue in the first place, right? And how do you actually deal with it? Again, as we said, your parents can argue because of phone screens, right? But the second major thing that I've ChatGPT'd is that chores are one of the biggest problems as well, right? You and your family are basically working together, right? You're a functioning family because everyone does their jobs. But maybe that day you don't feel like doing your job, or that day you feel lazy. And guess what? Just because you don't do your chores one day, your parents go and kick your ass. It kind of sucks, right? And it is one of the worst sort of worse punishments because your parents would always think that you would be this obedient child. You're not. And they have to understand that kids themselves are just not going to be as matured until they are fully adult. Now, the idea is, how can we actually, deal with it? I genuinely don't have many tips because I also suffer from sort of the same thing, but it really depends on a lot of different things. For teens, majorly, it's really about looking at through a different perspective, right? You yourself have to look and say, okay, why did this argument start? Was it because your mom or dad didn't like you, or was it because someone else was, hurting you, or something like that, right? You have to sort of analyze what caused it first. If the argument was not caused by you, or you just hear your mom and dad yell at each other or have an argument, you have to make sure that it is not your fault. You're not the reason why they're arguing, right? Maybe you could be, but you can't put the blame on yourself because you weren't there to trigger the argument. They did them themselves. And for that, I would say if your parents ever have an argument, I would love, and I usually always do this, would just put headphones on to drain out the argument, listen to some music, maybe call your friends, or maybe just do something, occupy yourselves, because your brain needs to block out the noise, and doing something helps that because you're thinking about doing your task rather than focusing on the bunch of yelling that's happening in the background. Now, for a lot of teens as well, you have to realize that your parents won't always be your picturesque parents. They won't always be the parents you want them to be because everyone's imperfect in this world. No one's perfect. Shock. And so with that, it's better for you to understand that your parents will be harsh, but you guys can adapt to it. Maybe, your parents yell a lot all the time, but you have to know that you don't have to be like them. You don't have to be a copy of your dad or mom. It might be hard, right? Because they're constantly arguing, but you don't have to be them. You could be someone else that you truly feel. Maybe, you like to be this really loud, extroverted guy and really help everyone. Well, do that. Or maybe you like to be quiet and read a book. Do that, right? You don't have to be your argumentative parents, like sort of disciple, because you're literally a different person than they are. They're just your parents. So at the end of the day, you have to realize that you aren't the one that is to blame for it. At the end of the day, your parents will always argue. It doesn't matter how perfect they are in your world. People will have disagreements. It's a human quality. We're not perfect. And because of that, people start to lash out. Maybe you start to lash out on your parents because they've been giving you a hard time. Don't do that. You don't want to put stress on somebody else. Learn how you could energize that stress or trickle down that stress somewhere else. Maybe if you're angry because they're arguing, you can go meditate, or you can go punch your pillow or punch a stuffy that you have on your bed, right? Try to energize that energy out of you. Try to funnel it out. Don't keep it in, because that's the worst thing that can happen, right? You passing it down to someone else that doesn't deserve what you're dealing with, right? You can ask your friends for help, but you don't have to pass it down to them. And yeah, that's sort of all the advice I have. I thought of just making this quick video because I just heard my grandparents argue like a few minutes ago, so I was just like, this is a good video idea. And yeah, thank you for listening. I'll see you guys in the next